Hey y'all, welcome to the Southern Appalachian Herbal Podcast. I'm Judson Carroll and I'm an herbalist. I'm also a wild crafter, a gardener, and herb grower. I'm coming to you from high atop the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, just a stone's throw from the Tennessee line, overlooking the Pisgah National Forest. Absolutely surrounded by the bounty of God's green earth. I spent most of my life wandering these mountains and learning about plants from the old-timers and all sorts of characters. On this show, we'll talk about herbs and how to use them, how to find them, how to grow them, how to make preparations. We'll talk about a lot of things. We can also talk about permaculture, homesteading, foraging, and living off the land. Most anything, really. You can email me at southernappalachianherbs@gmail.com if you have a question or a comment. You can also contact me through the Grow Network, where I'm a regular contributor and a moderator for the forums. And my blog is, of course, southernappalachianherbs@blogspot.com. All right, y'all. I'm going to sit my guitar down and let's talk about herbs.
Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. I guess all I can say is I hope it is warmer where you are than where I am. My word, it has been a cold week. I think most of the country, most of America, and yes, I have to keep in mind that I'm talking to people all over the world. I actually have quite a few British listeners, European listeners, Australian. It's always amazing when I look at the stats to see, where the audience is actually coming from. Um, my friend Frank Salvato was concerned when I titled my show the Southern Appalachian Herb Podcast that people would think it was just about the Southern Appalachians. So whenever he interviewed me, I think he's done it a couple of times. Yeah, I've been on his show maybe 3 times now. Anyway, great radio show, and he kept emphasizing, and it's for everywhere. It's not just Southern Appalachia, and it's true. It really is. The herbs I talk about, one of the ones I'm going to talk about today, probably grows anywhere you are. And if not, you could certainly grow it. It's Erigeron. It is common name Fleabane or Canada Fleabane is the one that's most common here. It's also known as a daisy sometimes, but it's not a true daisy. We'll get into that. One of the most useful herbs you'll ever encounter. It's one of those that people consider a weed for no apparent reason. It's a pretty little flower, maybe a little scruffy, but it's hardy. It grows where it's planted. Like the old Dolly Parton song, "Wildflowers." Wildflowers don't care where they grow. What a great song. That's actually one of my favorite Dolly Parton songs. I'm not a huge Dolly Parton fan, actually. Probably one of the best voices. She sings like an angel, especially when she was younger. I mean, and she was gorgeous, of course. She's still fairly attractive, but for a woman of her years. But I mean, when she was younger, she was just drop dead, knockout gorgeous with a voice like an angel. I mean, seriously, if you've never listened to early Dolly Parton, I mean, like pre-Jolene, when she became, a huge star, you are missing out. That woman can sing. And when she was younger, wow, knockout bombshell. But I don't like her very much as a person. I don't. Obviously, I disagree with her politics. But also, I think she really kind of took advantage of, let's say she used her looks to gain influence and position and didn't really care how she left people. She almost killed Merle Haggard. I mean, seriously, he was so in love with her that he wigged out. I mean, she spurned him, and he spent maybe 3 years on a boat with 100 pounds of cocaine. I mean, she literally almost killed Merle Haggard. And she definitely broke Porter Wagner's heart. I mean, no doubt. I mean, he was devastated. When again, she spurned his affections and left his TV show. I don't think he ever recovered. No, I mean, they were friends later in life. She actually paid for his funeral. So, I think what do I know? This is just those rumors in country music history and everything. It could be totally mistaken, but that's what the country music magazines were writing about in the 60s and 70s. And I mean, who wouldn't fall in love with her? I mean, honestly. But probably, definitely on the politics and social issues and religion, we are polar opposites. But yeah, good song. Wildflowers Don't Care Where They Grow. It's just a classic. And probably my favorite thing she ever did was a duet with Chet Atkins, Do I Ever Cross Your Mind? That's fantastic. The girl could play a guitar and sing. And Chester was, one of the probably five greatest guitar players ever lived. I mean, of all time. Technically proficient beyond. I mean, the old story is that he wanted to learn classical guitar. I mean, he was self-taught. A picker from the Appalachian Mountains of Tennessee. I mean, he was not terribly well educated. He was very well self-educated. The man read a lot, and he was brilliant. He was actually a brilliant engineer. He understood mathematics and electricity, and I mean, very high IQ, a very shy, quiet kid and all. So when he kind of made it as the best guitar player in Nashville, he decided he wanted to learn classical guitar, like from scratch. And he went to Segovia, the greatest guitar player ever, in the classical realm, and became a student under a false name because he didn't. Well, one, Segovia didn't like country music, and he probably wouldn't have accepted him as a student. Two, he wanted to just be treated like anyone else. And he actually became Andre Segovia's star pupil. And Segovia was like, he wanted him to tour and promote classical guitar. And he's like, well, I have to tell you, I'm actually Chet Atkins. And he was just shocked. Segovia was just like appalled that Chet Atkins had come and learned to be his star pupil. So anyway, if you want to look up those two songs, Wildflowers and Do I Ever Cross Your Mind? That's gorgeous. That's probably my favorite thing she ever did. And, not one of her more popular. I mean, it's not Coat of Many Colors or Patches or Jolene. I mean, the songs that you would, or I Will Always Love You. My word, what a song. If you've only heard the Whitney Houston version, that was a cover, it was a remake, pull up Dolly Parton. That was the song she wrote for Porter Wagoner when she left the show. And oh gosh, I remember seeing that episode. Reruns of the old Porter Wagoner show from the 70s. They used to play them on RFD TV. I don't know if they do anymore, but this was like maybe 10 years ago. And she goes out and she says, I've got something special for Porter. And that ripped his guts out. When she sang I Will Always Love You, that ripped that man's guts out. I mean, he was like a gutted fish on the stage. So, anyway, anyway, we'll move on. We'll get to the recipe of the week. Now that I've talked about everything but herbal medicine, this is an herb. I have discussed at great length. I've done an entire episode on Angelica as a medicinal herb, but I don't think I discussed it much as a culinary herb. Now, Angelica is an umbelliferous plant. It is in the same family as fennel and dill and carrots and celery and so many other things, including some of the most poisonous plants like poison hemlock. So this was when I was learning herbal medicine. The folks who taught me were adamant that I learn to identify Angelica so as not to confuse it with poison hemlock or water hemlock. It can also look like cow parsnip, which is a perfectly harmless plant, but it can also look a lot like poison hemlock when it's smaller. It grows huge when it gets bigger, but when it's early spring, these plants can really be mistaken for each other. So you've got to really be careful when you are identifying any of the Apiaceae family, the umbelliferous plants, the wild carrot, the baby's breath, the wild parsnip, all these. The other plant it can often be mistaken for is baneberry or doll's eyes. Now, in early spring, you're not going to mistake them later on once they mature. Doll's eyes, as we call it in the Appalachians, is one of the freakiest looking plants you'll ever see. It has a red stem, first of all. I mean, it's like crimson red stem, right? With white berries that have little black dots on them at the ends that look like doll's eyes. They literally look like, Chucky or something. I mean, it's freaky. I mean, it's a plant that just says, do not touch me. Well, it actually has some interesting medicinal uses. We'll get into later in the book on weeds and grasses, medicinal weeds and grasses. I do list the baneberry or doll's eyes. It is a very toxic plant that does have certain antispasmodic properties, and I'll tell you how it has been traditionally used, historically used, but with that great caveat of don't play around with this one. Just like poison hemlock also has some very limited medicinal use, like in an overdose from methamphetamine. It can calm the person and probably actually save their life, but you don't ever want to do that because you're literally countering one poison with another poison, and if anything goes wrong, you're going to go to jail. But in your, you take responsibility for your own health, and I think it's good to know these plants. But Angelica is a wonderful plant. It's more like fennel or celery, really more like fennel than just about anything else. We've talked about all the medicinal uses. I mean, it's good for the lungs. It's it has so many uses, so look up that show. I won't get into all the medicinal stuff right now. But when it comes to Angelica, remember it has a taste between fennel and licorice. So, obviously, it's been traditionally candied. If I had to kind of describe the flavor of Angelica, it's like a mix between celery, fennel, and licorice, and it's really good. That really does suit my taste, and I don't eat a lot of candied stuff, but a candied Angelica root is what's usually used, sliced thin, cooked down in just sugar, sugar and water. You do like a simple syrup, basically, equal parts sugar and water. Simmer it down with the sliced Angelica root in there, and it is not only a nice sweet, but it's one of the best cough drops there is. And of course, you can take the juice from Angelica and do the same thing and make an actual cough drop out of it. I'm not going to get into how to make candy right now. I mean, it's really complex. Get a good candy making guide. Basically, at different temperatures, sugar forms different states. You get a syrup, and then you get almost like a soft, stringy caramel. Then it gets like softball stage, then hardball stage, then it gets to the hard cracking stage, and that's science. I mean, that you will literally need to have a candy thermometer, a stove that you can rely on to heat accurately. Probably a double boiler. Yeah, probably a double boiler, and a book or a guide of some sort that tells you how to make candy. Candy making is science. I mean, it literally is. You can look at it and say, at this temperature, the sugars will form this crystalline structure or this liquid structure. So, yeah, I don't really get into candy that much. I'm not a big sweets guy. What I actually like to do is to use the leaves and flowers as a culinary herb. The flavors, like I said, somewhat more like anise actually. Almost an anise or licorice, with a mix of maybe juniper. There's a little something wild about it. It's a little bitter and a little strong, but also got that kind of licoricey, anisey flavor, and I think it's fantastic paired with pork. Love to take pork chops, rub them down with salt and pepper, and put some herbs on there, like Angelica, fennel, if I have it, definitely celery leaf, anything kind of in that, parsley, of course, in that flavor profile. I may put a little rosemary on there, definitely do some rosemary. Maybe a little oregano or mint or basil, something in the mint family. Those are all the same family of herbs, And maybe a little sugar. I mean, a lot of people like a sugar and salt cure. I usually just do a salt and herb cure. But so I leave the sugar out, but you can definitely do that. Add some crushed red pepper. Definitely have black pepper and hot pepper. Put them in the fridge and let them sit for at least 12 hours and really soak in all those herb flavors. And then just bake them in the oven. I leave the herbs on them. I just bake them off and maybe top with a little Parmesan cheese. Fantastic, actually. It's sort of like a porchetta, porchetta, I think, Porcette. It's a they usually do it with pork belly, and sometimes they'll put maybe a loin, wrap the belly around the loin, and put all those herbs in there. They do it in Italy, and they let it season like that. They probably leave it for a few days in the fridge to really get infused, and then smoke it. Sometimes, oftentimes it's unsmoked, and then fry it. Well, I just think just seasoning the pork chops up like that, and maybe I stuff them with a mix of breadcrumbs and herbs and Parmesan cheese or whatever. Spinach, always good. Spinach and pork go so well together. Apples, yeah, you could absolutely put this with apples. Apples and Angelica, perfect. Perfect combination. And just remember, Angelica is very much like fennel, but stronger. The other thing that's really neat is the unopened flowers can be breaded and deep fried. They make a really good. I don't even know, what do you call that? You take the flowers, a fritter. Yeah, they make a really good flower fritter, crispy and delicious. They were. You can actually grind them up and or chop them up, whatever I'm trying to say. Like I would use a mortar and pestle and combine them into a bread dough. Really good. When they're a little bit larger, you can leave the outer calyx in place and eat the sepals along with some tender leaves. So this is a spring thing. This is the spring foraging cookbook, obviously. Slice them open and stuff them with goat cheese, like you might do squash blossoms or something. Maybe some chopped garlic, salt, black pepper, bread them and fry them. They're just awesome. Honestly, it's an assertive flavor, though. This is not like your mild squash blossoms or daylily blossoms. This is a bold flavor, and the leaves, I think, really go well with eggs, because you got those mild, creamy. I mean, I always have soft scrambled eggs, but I'd throw these in an omelet. I'd use them anyway. And really good in frittatas. We'll get a lot into frittatas as I go through this book, especially in the next week's chapter, which is going to be on wild asparagus. But basically frittatas, you take any vegetable you like, saute them in a frying pan, crack some eggs, whip them up, pour them on top, some cheese, let it cook on the bottom, then stick it in a broiler and let it cook on top. It's like somewhere between an omelet and a pizza. I mean, it's really easy. But that fennelly kind of flavor goes really well with tomatoes, hot peppers, eggplants, anything along those lines, and fantastic with pork sausage. I mean, I just, you put a lot of fennel in Italian sausage. How can you go wrong? Honestly. So yeah, Angelica's super good, and it's so good for the lungs and such. Why not learn to cook with it? And if it grows where you live, like it does here, we actually have tons of it. I could probably actually live on Angelica as a sole vegetable without putting a dent in the wild population, so to speak. But if not, you can probably grow it in your garden. And I mean, Angelica is named after the angels. I mean, it's thought to be like one of the most wonderfully medicinal plants there is, and the scent was called angelic. And I used to know a girl named Angelica, and that was her name, Angelica, just like the herb, right? And she was just obsessed with the herb Angelica and its history and its lore. Yeah, really, really nice little black girl from Savannah. And good friend. She absolutely loved this plant. So she really got me thinking about the scent of the plant, because she liked to make essential oils and use it in perfumes and such, whereas I just used it as a lung herb, because I have asthma. And that really understanding the scent of it is what made me think about cooking with it. And it is so good. If you like fennel, if you like anise, if you like licorice, if you like celery, you're going to love to cook with Angelica. So I would definitely grow it in the garden if I didn't have it in the wild. And I got a ton of it in the wild. A ton. It is one of the most common plants around where I live, and that's cool. That's where I live. We got May apples, we got ramps, we got all kinds of things that people just don't find in the wild elsewhere. Trilliums, another good wild edible and medicinal herb. It's called Beth root or birth root in old herbal traditions. So many, so many. I mean, gosh, if I take a hike out my back door, heading up toward Grandfather Mountain, I get up around Flat Rock, I know an area where millions well, at least thousands of lady slipper orchids grow, pink and yellow lady slipper orchids, totally endangered. You cannot pick them. I remember Michael Moore, the herbalist, talking about how he had only seen one in his entire life. I mean, it is such a rare herb. It's so beautiful, just phenomenal, and yeah, that's like right out my back door. I mean, and I don't tell people about it because they go pick them and harvest them, and I mean, that's one, illegal, and two, the plant is almost extinct, so we don't do that. Um, and there's so many other things. Bloodroot, sanguinaria, that's another one we'll get into later. I got tons of it. I got bloodroot just growing around my back doorstep. I mean, literally, it's in there in the mint beds. It just pops up. It's just super cool, and super valuable herb. I know a patch that's just full of golden seal, and another one that's just full of ginseng, and you know, it's a there's a reason I live where I do. Yeah, very very blessed to live, to even have just a small amount of space on this incredible mountain range. That the Appalachian Mountains are as old as the Himalayas. They're one of the oldest mountain ranges on Earth. But very interestingly, if you're ever in the middle of North Carolina, um, 3 hours away from where I live, probably 3 hours from the mountain and 3 hours from the coast. In the dead center of North Carolina, you're going to find the Uwharries, and that may actually be the oldest mountain range on Earth. They think at one point they were about twice as tall as the Rocky Mountains, and they've weathered down to, I think, I don't think the highest peak in the entire range is over 1,000 feet, and that's probably more a mountain. Um, just incredible. And as far as the rare plants that grow there and the herbs, um, not a lot of writing has even been done about it, not a lot of documentation. And it was actually where America's first gold rush began. They found nuggets the size of footballs. I mean, this is, talk about a unique place. You got everything in that area. I mean, it's literally one of the least populated, lesser known places, even in North Carolina. Most people in Charlotte and Raleigh that are like right around there don't even know what the Uwharries are. Fayetteville, they never heard of the Uwharries, right? And you've got sites like the Hardaway site with dinosaur bones. Yes, there are actually dinosaur bones there. You got the Indian Mound. You've got a quarry. I can't was it rhyolite or something. I can't remember the name of the stone. It's like a shell type stone, very sharp. That Native Americans thousands of years ago were mining out of these quarries, turning into arrowheads, axe heads, scrapers for tanning, for working with hides, everything you can imagine. Knives. I mean, it's like obsidian. It's so sharp. And you find this. I mean, you can go up to upstate New York, and the tribes up there are like the Onondaga, the Mohicans, and all that. There's one what was the name of that group of tribes up there that had their big like round table? Anyway, it doesn't matter. You will find these stones from North Carolina. You'll find them in Florida with the Seminoles. I mean, they had these trade routes. I mean, even going out to like Navajo country, coming from this little tiny place in the middle of nowhere in North Carolina, in like the least populated corner of our entire state. It's just so remarkably rich in history. And if I ever get the time, I really want to get in there and document the plants. I wish, maybe God willing, someday I can find maybe a botanist or something that would, even an ethnobotanist, that would be cool, but maybe, someone, a professor or something that would go in there with me, and they could help me identify the plants, because a lot of them are probably not going to show up in the books. Like I said, this is like the oldest mountain range on the face of the earth. And I could, provide the medicinal information, and it would probably be a lot of fun. It'd probably be a lot like what Andre Michaud and Asa Gray and the botanists in early America, Audubon, had a chance to do in the right around 1700. I don't know that this has ever been done in the Uwharrie National Forest, and it should absolutely be done. But it's always been an area that was valuable for, one, the gold, because there's still a lot of gold in that area. But two, they're active mines, by the way. So some of them you could actually like take your RV and vacation and go out gold mining and all that. But they're still mining a lot of gold out there. But two, the timber. If you're familiar with John F. Kennedy's Jr., JFK's, not Jr., JFK's, well, anyway, the President Kennedy, the one that was assassinated by Oswald and the CIA and who knows what, his rocking chair was built there. Let me think, was that in Albemarle? I think Albemarle or Troy. I'm thinking it was Albemarle. He had he had back issues. He was injured in that PT boat that he served on. And he had to have a special rocking chair. And it was made there, and that kind of was what made the area famous. But he turned it into a national forest because I'm not a fan of John Kennedy whatsoever, even though, our only Catholic president, I think he was pretty awful in most regards, a very immoral person. But he did see the value of that area, and he helped it become a national forest. And it's gorgeous. Check out Baden Lake, Lake Tillery, Morrow Mountain. If you ever go up to Morrow Mountain, you'll see these incredible stone walls and shelter, all made of stone, picnic area, cooking pits, picnic tables, everything made out of hand-cut stone. Well, my grandfather did that. Yeah, he and his friend that worked with him were hired by the state of North Carolina, and they would go up there for weeks at a time and sleep in the car. And he was a stonemason, a brick mason. And a lot of that was originally done, I should say this, by the WPA, works, whatever, in the Great Depression. He restored a lot of it. But beyond that, a lot of those structures were built by him. Not only did he restore, but he also built a lot of it. And if you ever get over toward Moore County, he did a lot of work. I cannot remember the name of that one. I'll have to look that up. Maybe I can give it to you next time. Is for the Park Service. There's a natural history site, for lack of a better term, and he built most of that as well. And if you get into Fayetteville and you go to the old Market House, the oldest structure, one of the oldest structures in North Carolina, actually, he did all the historic preservation, the renovation, the brickwork when it was falling down, basically in the 60s. Yeah. I cannot remember. It's a state park facility in Moore County. It's in Southern Pines, and it's just not coming to me. But I'll try to get that for you sometime. If you ever want to see my grandfather's work, if you don't, it's fine too. And if you ever get down to Pender County, there's a good museum there that has a buggy that he restored, a Surrey that actually belonged to the governor of North Carolina, Governor McLean, Angus McLean, if I remember correctly. And if you're in Bladen County, of course, go to Harmony Hall. And Harmony Hall is the big living history museum in White Oak near Tar Heel. And you'll see tons of my family stuff from like 5 different sides of my family, buildings and everything, furniture that they donated. So anyway, and actually if you get down to Lake Waccamaw, my grandfather was a park ranger there for I don't even know how long. He found some of the oldest artifacts, canoes in the entire state of North Carolina. They're now in the State History Museum that he pulled out of those bays, as they call them. Really interesting. The Bladen Lakes were formed by meteorites. Meteors, I guess, not rights, but meteors actually millions of years ago. These meteors crashed to the ground and formed these huge pits that became these lakes in eastern North Carolina. So really pretty amazing, and it is cool that my family has such a, well, especially my grandfather has such an impact in preserving the history of North Carolina and these, unique state sites. Yeah, and of course up in the mountains of North Carolina, you got to go to Grandfather Mountain, which is, and Linville Falls and everything, which I call my backyard and my front yard. Beautiful, absolutely gorgeous areas. So let's get into the medicinal weed, and it is, as I promised, Erigeron, Erigeron. And we're going to talk about two in particular, Erigeron bonariensis, I don't know, bonariensis, I guess, and Erigeron canadensis, which is far more common where I live. The bonariensis is known as flaxleaf fleabane, flaxleaf horseweed, hairy fleabane, or small horseweed. It's nowhere near as used in herbal medicine as the Canada fleabane or Erigeron canadensis, also known as butterweed, Canadian horseweed, colt's tail, horseweed, and mare's tail. And several herbs actually go under the name of mare's tail, so be careful with that. Erigeron, you may know this one as Fleabane daisy. That's another common name. Canada fleabane or Fleabane daisy. It is not a daisy. It has a little white flower with a little purplish tint to it most times. That's the way it seems to appear to me. Some people say it's a pure white flower. I say there's a little lavender hue to it. But anyway, it is extremely astringent. It is one of the most useful herbs for really bad diarrhea, like dysentery, irritable bowel syndrome. I mean, this is like the go-to for irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, colitis, anything along those lines. It has been known, the plant Erigeron has been known throughout the history of herbal medicine. Dioscorides wrote of it as conyza, I believe, Conyza, in ancient Greek medicine, in De Materia Medica. And he describes it perfectly. It's like, he said it has, now in his region it was a yellow flower, whereas in my region it's more of a whitish flower, but, same family. He didn't use the roots. He said, actually, this is amazing, that the smoke of the leaves would drive away poisonous beasts, keep off gnats, and kill fleas. That's where it gets the name Fleabane. Fleas don't like the herb. The leaves are usually laid on those bitten by snakes and on swellings and wounds. Well, it's astringent. It would take down inflammation. He said it was good for slow, painful urination, so it has a diuretic type property. He said it was good for griping and jaundice. The astringent property can help reduce liver inflammation. Very important. He said that infused in wine, it was good for the menstrual flow. It would bring on menses. Actually, I think he was. No, let me. Okay. He said a decoction of it in wine. The leaves infused in wine were good for the menstrual flow, so reducing excess menstruation. Decoction taken in vinegar helps with epilepsy. A decoction as a hip bath cures disorders of the womb and cleans away the menstrual flow. I don't, as far as epilepsy, this is one of the old herbal remedies. I don't know how or if it works. So remember, we're talking about a 3,000-year-old document. So take that with a grain of salt. The juice, the herb rubbed on with oil is good for chills. Thinly applied, it cures headaches. It is also called we don't need to get into that. Should not be used by pregnant women. It can cause a miscarriage. It was also called by the Romans febrifugia, which means they were using it for fevers. And interesting, the Magi, remember the Magi in the Bible? Call it Chronos. So it was one that was known all over the ancient world. And actually, there's a little controversy of whether, well, he wrote two Erigerons. One of the two Erigerons he wrote of seems to be Senecchio. That's another herb we'll talk about. Um, Very different. I have some that grows down at my mother's place in the Sandhills of North Carolina. I have looked into Senecchio. It is a bit more. Erigeron is a fairly safe plant, except for pregnant women. Senecchio can be quite a bit dangerous in large amounts. So we'll talk about that another day. But I just if you look up Dioscorides' book, De Materia Medica, I just wanted to give you a warning that one of the Erigerons that he wrote about, one of the Fleabanes, was not Fleabane and was probably Senecchio. So back to Fleabane, Gerard wrote of 10 plants that he called Fleabane. And so I can't even tell you what all those were, but he said the leaves were good against the strangury, that's the one I can't pronounce, Strangury, jaundice and gnawing and griping of the belly. The same taken with vinegar helpeth the epilepsy or falling sickness. So that's probably the same cure or remedy, I should say, that Dioscorides was referencing, and that would be the Erigeron. I don't know why or if that works. As I said, take it with a grain of salt. This is 1500s England, so still a very old book. If women do sit over a decoction thereof, it greatly easeth the pains of the mother. Who knows? The herb burned where flies, gnats, or fleas, or any venomous things are, doth drive them away. So again, of these 10 plants, they probably all shared that same quality of driving off fleas and flies and gnats, etc. Now, Miss Grieve gets us a lot more clarity. In 1940s or 1930s, actually, she wrote the classic A Modern Herbal. And she says, common fleabane is the inula or sunflower family. It seems this herb was also found very useful for dysentery. She lists Canada fleabane separately. This is the Erigeron family, not the sunflower family. Okay, Erigeron canadense, that's the Canada fleabane. That's the one that grows here in North Carolina. Apparently, the other one does too, but I haven't run into it very often. It's in this, but it is in the Compositae family, which means it is in the same broader family as sunflower and such, but and daisies and all that. But it is very different. She says it was introduced into Europe in the 17th century. Parkinson, in his Theatrum Botanicum of 1640, mentions it having been brought to Europe, but describes it as an American species. So our canadense is apparently from North America, and was not yet growing in England. In 1653, we hear of it growing in the botanical gardens of Paris, and soon after it had become a weed about Paris. So I think it's, like I said, I think it's a pretty flower. I can see why people would grow it in a botanical garden, but it is also tough and weedy, and it will grow wherever the seed finds enough soil just to germinate and enough moisture. She says we first hear of it in England in 1669, and since its introduction has often been found in the neighborhood of London and the Thames Valley, where it appears to have naturalized itself here and there, though it is very rare in the rest of England. By 1832, Green stated, that's Universal Herbal, that it had been found in, I'm not even going to try to pronounce this. Well, I will try, but I will fail. Glamorganshire? I'm sure my English friends are laughing at me. Hey, I could say Worcestershire, but Glamorganshire. Anyway, the name denotes soon becoming old. That's where the name Erigeron means, and is most appropriate for in many of the species the plant, even when in flower, has a worn out looking appearance. That's true. It's like weedy, rough kind of. It's not a it's more like chicory as opposed to being like an ornamental flower. Whereas chicory's blue and this is white, but it's got that kind of like roughed up appearance to it. It looks like it's been run over a few times. It gives the idea of a weed which is past its prime, as she says. Parkinson said of Fleabane, bound to the forehead, it is a great help to cure one of frenzy. I don't know what kind of frenzy that would be. Probably a headache. Culpepper says of fleawort or fleabane, he said it attains its name because the seeds look like fleas. Well, apparently it's because it drives away fleas, but who knows? Maybe it's two reasons. Whole herb, gathered when in bloom and dried in bunches. That's definitely the way you want to do it. Hang these up in bunches on your porch in the shade, away from where they're going to get direct sunlight or rain, water. And they'll dry just fine. You can hang them up in your house too. I usually just hang things on my porch. The herb, or actually in the attic, that's my favorite place to dry herbs, especially in the summertime. If you go up in your attic, it's going to be like, 110, 120 degrees, right? Where the rest of your house is maybe 70. If you have a door that goes up to your attic and you have vents, every attic should have vents, it lets the hot air out, or it'll destroy your roof if you don't have open vents. You can put a clothes rack, what you might dry sweaters on, or anything like that, over the door that goes up into the attic. Open the door and you will have airflow, cool air. Let me see. The air in your house, the hot air from your house will rise, and you'll have a continuous flow of air going up through that open door and out through your vents, right? It is the perfect natural dehydrator. It's good for drying herbs. Herbs that might take a week to dry on my front porch will be done in a couple of hours, dried that way in the attic. Great way to dry fruits and vegetables as well. Your attic is a natural dehydrator if you set it up right to get good airflow in the heat of the summer. It's fantastic. It really is also a good way to dry clothes. If you don't want to use your electric clothes dryer or whatever, and you don't have a clothesline outside, you can absolutely dry clothes by putting a clothes rack over an open attic door. It's one of the best money-saving, energy-saving devices that you probably already own and don't know about. Attic doors are great for that. So if you don't remember anything else from this episode, remember that Fleabane can stop diarrhea and bleeding and such, and you have probably already a great food and herb dehydrator in your house that you've never used, and clothes dryer, and it's called your attic door. So let's see. She says the herb contains a bitter, extractive, tannic, and gallic acids and a volatile oil to which virtues are due, the medicinal actions and uses of which being astringent means it tightens tissue and dries. Diuretic means it removes excess fluids. Tonic meaning it tonifies, again, tightens tissue, but in this case probably means good for digestion. Is generally considered useful in gravel, that's kidney or bladder stones. Diabetes, dropsy, that's edema, fluid retention in the ankles and such. And many kidney diseases, it is employed in diarrhea and dysentery. Oil of Erigeron resembles in its action oil of turpentine, but is less irritating. That's how strong this plant is. It's like turpentine. It has been used to arrest hemorrhages from the lungs or alimentary tract. I mean, it stops bleeding from the lungs or the bowels. And it's not assigned to it, but it's not much used in modern medicine, or at least that property was not assigned to it, as he said. But it was, in her time, 1930s, said to be a valuable remedy for inflamed tonsils and ulcerations and inflammation of the throat. And let's see. And it is somewhat bitter, which would be the tonic action in digestion. The American Eclectic Materia Medica has a very interesting entry. The Eclectics were the main herbal school in America in, let's just say, the 17 to mid-1800s. And what eclectic means is they were combining British and European herbal medicine with Native American medicine. Actually, John James Audubon was very much a part of the eclectic movement. These were people going out discovering new plants and their uses in their new homeland. They said therapeutic action. These species of Erigeron are diuretic, tonic. Diaphoretic means helps break a fever. So remember I referenced that earlier. And astringent. The two species possess identical medicinal properties and are highly esteemed by many practitioners for gravel, That's, again, kidney and bladder stones. Nephritic conditions, that's kidney as well. And certain forms of dropsy. Dr. Wistar of Philadelphia used them with much advantage in hydrothorax complication with gout. The infusion or decoction of Fleabane is said to have increased the secretion of urine in a single day from 24 to 67 ounces. Gosh, that's a huge increase. That's a powerful diuretic. From this, we may infer that it possesses no ordinary amount of diuretic power. In other words, yeah, it's going to get you going. It affords relief in strangury. That's a condition where you can't urinate. Okay, produced by canthrides, suppression of urine, gravel, diabetes, chronic nephritis, kidney issues, and other urinary affections. It has been recommended as a diaphoretic in cutaneous disease, rheumatism, so good for fevers, skin issues, rheumatism, as arthritis, and astringent for hemorrhages and in chronic diarrhea, though it is not equal to Canada Fleabane for the latter purpose. So on this one, we are looking at Erigeron bonariensis. You'd think they'd come up with something a little more simple. The one that's not Canada Fleabane. Let's just go with that. It is also said to have been serviceable in coughs and catamenial obstructions. Resources of the Southern Fields and Forest gives us a good entry on Canada Fleabane, Erigeron canadensis, which is the one I use most often. This is an herb I do use. I have a relative with some irritable bowel issues. She finds Canada Fleabane and yarrow, sage, and goldenrod. Any combination thereof to be especially effective, but especially Canada Fleabane, even just by itself. So it was common in sandy soil. So this is why I find it so much in the sandhills of North Carolina. And that's where I always harvest it. Every now and then I do see some on the mountain. Yeah, it does grow in the mountains, but it grows far more plentifully in the sandhills. They say it is a stimulant tonic, they're talking for digestion, diuretic and astringent, employed with marked success in dropsy and diarrhea. It is much used by the vegetable practitioners in latter diseases. That means herbalists, by the way. They used to call us vegetable practitioners. I kind of like that. I don't mind being a vegetable practitioner. I am practicing my artichokes today. Tomorrow I shall be practicing my, potatoes. Practicing vegetable. Here, practice with this potato. They give a teacupful of the infusion of the herb in hot water every 2 hours. That's actually how I use it as well, as a tea. I never make a tincture out of Fleabane. It just works so well as a tea. When chewed, it relieves cholera. Dr. Depues found it useful in these diseases, and that was listed in the United States dispensatory at the time in the 1860s. So this was official medicine. This is what doctors were using. He found tannin, gallic acid, and volatile oils amongst its constituents, from which its beneficial action in the diseases may be inferred. An infusion of the powdered flowers is antispasmodic and is employed in hysterical and nervous affections. That would be what we used to call PMS. Okay, so don't get offended, hysterical ladies. Don't go hysterical. It's just the way they used to refer to premenstrual syndrome. The oil obtained from the plant possesses extraordinary styptic properties. In other words, it stops bleeding. It's as good and astringent in my experience as yarrow. So it is really good. And a dose of the powder, 30 grams to 1 drachm. A measurement we don't much use anymore. They also listed as useful for gonorrhea, the oil of Erigeron especially. So there are other remedies now, but that was a traditional use for it. And let's see what else we have. Is there anything else? Let's see if I can get to some. Dr. Wilson of Philadelphia used, along with Dr. Bournville, this is also in the old medical dispensatories, found 5 drops every 2 hours of the oil of Fleabane to provide great success in uterine hemorrhage. So, like In that case, it's, well, again, like somewhat like Yara, but more like shepherd's purse. Shepherd's purse is the go-to for uterine hemorrhage. Fleabane would certainly, if I didn't have shepherd's purse, definitely grab the Fleabane. It tightens it, astringes the tissue. And like I said, I would use it as a tea, but these were doctors in the 1860s, and they were using the oils and more pharmaceutical extracts, we'll just say. There's another one called frost root, and it's Erigeron philadelphicum, native to probably the Philadelphia area, or that's wherever it was first um, identified. And it's pretty much used the same way. Diuretic. It says in great repute as a remedy in calculous and nephritic diseases, so kidney stones, essentially. Good for gout. And there's also Erigeron strigosum, which is also native to this area, but seems to be more common in the vicinity of Charleston, South Carolina. Same uses. Erigeron is Erigeron, basically. King's Medical Dispensatory of 1898 says the plant is slightly tonic with active diuretic and astringent properties. And infusion has been found efficient in diarrhea, gravel, diabetes, dropsical affections, dysuria of children, painful micturition. I'm not even sure what micturition is. Micturition. I don't know. And nephritic affections. Some think it's probably something to do with the kiddies. I'll look it up at some point. You can do the same. Micturition. And I'm sure someone will have the answer for me by the time this podcast goes live. Google and anyway. Erigeron is extremely useful for the arrest of capillary bleeding from any organ liable to hemorrhage. And that's why I say it's very much like yarrow in that regard. And to arrest profuse watery secretions from the gastrointestinal and renal tract. For many years, it has been a popular favorite to arrest watery diarrhea and caloric stages of cholera infantum. Cholera, let's see, we'll skip ahead. Very interesting use. A snuff of the powdered leaves is good for nosebleeds. And again, astringent, Infusion, that's a tea, can be given hot or cold. I think cold actually does a little better for stopping bleeding as such. Good for bronchial disorders, especially with bloody expectoration. That means you're coughing up blood. A syrup can be made from it, which is very effective. Good for pulmonary consumption. So it was a go-to in the 1890s for tuberculosis. On account of its constringing or astringent properties over the renal capillaries, it has proven valuable in hyperurination and in diabetes, interestingly enough. Kidney issues associated with diabetes. Volatile oil is an astringent, good for hemorrhoids, bleeding from small wounds, rheumatism, boils, tumors, sore throats, and tonsillitis. Diarrhea, dysentery, everything. Hematuria, urine hemorrhage, menorrhagia, whatever. Good stuff. Really good stuff. Especially for capillary or passive hemorrhages, painful diseases of the kidney and bladder, conditions of the mucous membrane attended with free discharges, choleric discharges, gushing and watering, cramping with thirst, hematuria, menorrhagia, etc. There's also a Erigeron annuum, which was used very similarly. I mean, like I said, the Erigeron is an Erigeron, also known as common Fleabane. Interesting, they say this one has more of a violet color to it, so maybe the Erigeron I've been gathering is a cross between Canada and annuum. I don't know, but like I said, Erigeron is Erigeron, as far as I know. And they go on quite a bit. In the Cherokee tradition, poultice of the leaves was made for headache, poultice of the root for sun pains. Not sure what that is. Maybe something to do with heat stroke. No idea. Cold root tea for colds, and you could chew the root and swallow the juice. So, who was it? Was it Parkinson said the root was useless? Well, the Cherokee liked it. Jethro Kloss, 1920s, said excellent for cholera, dysentery, and the summer complaint. Now, as best I can tell, summer complaint was of diarrhea caused by bad water in hot weather that wouldn't have been around in cold water. So obviously this would help with diarrhea. There you go. He said very reliable for bladder troubles, burning urine, hemorrhages of the bowels and uterus. And let's see, plants for futures. Now we're in modern use. Says medicinal use of Canada fleabane. In traditional North American herbal medicine, Canada fleabane was boiled to make a steam for sweat lodges, taken as a snuff to stimulate sneezing during the course of a cold. Interesting. And burned to create a smoke that warded off insects, bugs. Let me get a sip of something here. My mouth's getting dry. Nowadays, and I love it when people actually write the word nowadays. I say it, but most people say nowadays, but it's Nowadays. And yes, it is actually grammatically correct, at least in England. Nowadays, it is valued for its astringency being used in the treatment of gastrointestinal problems such as diarrhea and dysentery. It is said to be very effective treatment for bleeding hemorrhoids. The whole plant is anti-rheumatic, astringent, balsamic. That means it has a stimulating scent, I guess we'll say. A diuretic, emmenagogue, means it brings on menses, actually. And it can also help arrest over excessive bleeding. Styptic, tonic, and vermifuge, which means it kills intestinal parasites. It can be harvested at any time of the year that it is in flower and is best used fresh. The dried herb should not be stored for more than a year. Yes, that's true. It has volatile oils. You don't want to store this one for a long time. But yeah, I do dry some. And I probably use it more dried than fresh, but I would not hesitate, certainly, to use it fresh. The seed can also be used. The infusion of the plant has been used to treat diarrhea and internal hemorrhages, or applied externally for the treatment of gonorrhea and bleeding piles, which is hemorrhoids. The leaves are experimentally hypoglycemic, which means they can lower blood sugar. That's something that, when this was written, and I guess it was about 20 years ago now, it was being experimented on. I haven't heard anything more about it, but some of the other writers said it was good for certain diabetic issues. The essential oil found in the leaves is used in the treatment of diarrhea, dysentery, and internal hemorrhages. It is a uterine stimulant and is also said to be valuable in the treatment of inflamed tonsils, plus ulceration and inflammation of the throat. A tea of the boiled roots is used to treat menstrual irregularities. A homeopathic remedy is made from the plant. It is used in the treatment of hemorrhoids and painful menstruation. Cloverleaf Farms Herbal Encyclopedia, really good site, by the way, says of Canadian or Canada fleabane, native to North America, the herb is now common in South America and Europe, and they describe it, which, it looks like a daisy that's been run over a few times. Let's just put it that way. And they tell the meaning of the word in Greek, eri, meaning early, and geron, old man, so premature aging, essentially, because it looks like an old flower, even when it's just freshly bloomed. Native American tribes, including I've never heard of this tribe, Meskwakis, Mesquakies. That's a tribe I've never heard of. Meskwakis, I guess. Powdered the flowers to make a snuff that, when sniffed, caused sneezing that would break up a head cold or catarrh or congestion. The Lakotas made a tea from the entire plant to treat children with sore mouths and adults who had difficulty urinating. Other uses include teas for rheumatism, lameness, and stomach disorders. The blossoms were also mixed with brains, gall, and the spleen of a buffalo and rubbed in the hide to bleach it in the tanning process. So the astringent properties use much like oak bark. I mean, that may sound weird, but actually brain tanning was really common among the Cherokee, and the English preferred using oak bark. You can also use, if you're making deer skin, you can It's a soft, soft leather made from the leather from a deer. You can use eggs. You don't have to use brains if that freaks you out or something. But actually, brains are quite tasty. Nothing wrong at all. Scrambled eggs with brains for breakfast and some onions, good stuff. Actually, if you haven't tried it, you probably should. Really good, healthy for you. Throw some hot sauce on there. That's actually quite good. And I mean, I know a lot of you are freaking out right now, but pork brains, calves brains with eggs. Stay away from deer for right now because there's that disease going around that in the deer population that affects the brain, and it could actually be infectious. So you got to be real careful with that. Anyway, the Cheyenne used the whole plant. Let's see, the Navajo used the Fleabane in lotions for body pains and headaches. The Cheyenne used the whole plant in boiling water to inhale the vapors. It was also boiled to make steam for sweat lodges and burned to create a smoke that would ward off insects. It was used to clear intestinal parasites, hence the common name. I'm not sure what they're talking about because we don't have fleas in our intestines, so that wouldn't. Fleabane makes sense if you're using a smoke to ward off fleas. Cleansing the body of intestinal parasites does not exactly refer to fleas. Anyway, they say astringent, diuretic, detoxifier. Interesting. No one had said that before. The astringent action makes it a good remedy for diarrhea and dysentery, bleeding hemorrhoids. The herb is commonly used to clear toxins in rheumatic conditions and to treat gonorrhea and other urogenital diseases. So that's what they're talking, detoxifier. And the Philadelphia, they say specifically was used by the Houma tribe. It's another Native American tribe, Houma, as a treatment for menstrual problems. And the Mexican relative, Erigeron affinis, is used to make a tooth powder to treat toothache. Again, the astringent properties can pull down swelling and help with the pain. Finally, we'll get the Peterson Field Guide for medicinal plants. Says plant tea used as a folk diuretic, astringent for diarrhea, for gravel or kidney stones, diabetes, painful urination, hemorrhages of the stomach and bowels, bladder and kidneys, also for nosebleeds, fevers, bronchitis, tumors, piles, and coughs. Africans used it for eczema and ringworm. Essential oils used for bronchial ailments and cystitis. That's another one. One of the best uses for or Fleabane is cystitis and bladder infections. Cystitis can be very serious. It can do serious tissue damage. So this is one of my go-to herbs. I mean, this is one of the. I mean, you can see from that description, it's almost a panacea. I consider it a first aid herb. And I identify it wherever I find it. I know where probably 5 to 20 patches of it are within a mile of my house in the mountains. And I know it. I know where that plant is when I need it. When someone in my family needs it, I know where that plant is. In the sandhills, I know where I could find 20 times as much. Yeah, it's considered a weed. It's going to grow where it finds some soil and water, and you could absolutely grow it in your garden. If you had a chronic condition like, irritable bowel syndrome, or were prone to bladder infections and such, or other issues, kidney stones, menstrual issues, I would absolutely grow this herb. Have it within a few feet of my door in case I wasn't feeling that way and didn't feel like going very far. And there is some within a few feet of my door. It self-seeds. I didn't put it there. A bird probably dropped some one day, and at my mother's house in the Sandhills, there is actually some growing right outside her bedroom window. And people may think it's a weed. I leave it be because when a family member, it's to me, it's more of an herb for women for obvious reasons. But it's useful for everybody, obviously. But when it's needed, it's needed. And it's one of those, like Bill Mollison would say, keep it planted close enough to your house so you can walk outside in the morning in your fuzzy slippers and pick it without them getting damp from the dew. I consider it a first aid medicine cabinet herb. And if you've been thinking of it as a weed, well, shame on you. Now you'll see it as a valuable, very valuable medicinal plant. So, y'all, that's going to wrap this one up for the day. Remember, this comes from my book, The Weeds and Medicinal Grasses The medicinal weeds and grasses, I think I got it right. The medicinal weeds and grasses of the American Southeast, these plants grow everywhere. I think Fleabane, we just talked about growing in Africa, Greece, Rome, England, Canada, the southwestern United States and the desert areas, Mexico, the southeastern United States, the Appalachians. I don't think you're going to go anywhere on this earth where you can't grow Fleabane. I mean, maybe maybe the South Pole. I think you could probably even make it at the North Pole. It's a really tough plant, and it's just wow. I mean, when you realize the medicinal uses of this plant, you're going to realize why God put it everywhere. You know, people need to learn to use the herbs and weeds for their health. And don't look at them as a weed. Look at them as a potential medicinal remedy or food until you've identified it as something that you don't want to be eating or whatever. I mean, there are certainly poisonous plants. We talked about poison hemlock. We talked about wolfsbane. You don't want to eat everything, obviously. But when you see a plant that pops up in your yard that you didn't plant there and you think of it as a weed, for Pete's sake, identify it before you go tearing it up. It may be a valuable plant. It may be a monetarily valuable plant as well as being a medicinal plant. I just last fall, a couple of things popped up, and I looked at them and thought, well, that looks familiar. What the heck is that? Ginseng. Yeah, little ginseng plants. Probably my neighbors certainly would have ripped them out of the ground. Well, I now have a new ginseng patch. So, yeah, I'm happy about that. Anyway, y'all, have a good one, and I'll talk to you next time.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, for your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.